What? Kia ora koutou katoa. Would anyone like to take a seat, please? Ngi iwana manga, ngā reo, ngā hoa whā, e kui mai, koro mai, rauranga tira mai, i te whānau o ihu matao, te iwi tainui, e te iwi tamaki makaurau, no reira, tēnā koutou katoa. Just a brief mihi to all of those who are visiting us today. Welcome.
No reira, tēnā koutou katoa and greetings.
Just a minute. Sorry. We're just going to go through a few protocols, and then we'll arrive at your presentation. Now, to all of our visitors here, just want to first of all give you a sense of how matters will proceed, so that you understand, and also those who are watching out, kia ora and morena. So we will start first of all with, we have an affirmation which encourages us all to do our best for the people of Tamaki Makaurau. Then we go from there and we deal with apologies. If you look around the chamber here today, you'll see one or two empty seats. People have got other matters that they're attending to. Then we got 3 or 4 other process issues, including acknowledgements of mate, and then we will arrive at item 6 at the petition from the Soul team. So it'll take us about 5 or 10 minutes to arrive at that point. So first of all, though, I want to commence with an affirmation. We seek wisdom, understanding, insights into the views and circumstances of others, strength to seek what we believe in, humility to accept the combined decisions of others, patience, good humour at all times, tolerance and courtesy, while working in the best interests of our whole community. Right, now, secondly, we move to apologies. So we've got a Councillor Chris Fletcher. We have got, I don't see Councillor Sharon's moved, Councillor Sir John, Councillor Denise and Councillor Ross. I note those 4 for their absence, so I'll move the apologies.
Second.
I got Councillor Ross.
Oh, sorry.
It's all under control. Okay, so I'll move that seconder. I've got Councillor Cam. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Against? Passed. Right, acknowledgements and achievements. I'm going to first of all just acknowledge our achievements through the month. In particular, of course, the conclusion of the rollout of the electric trains. 57 of them are now on track, and you can see the patronage growth there. There's a lot to celebrate, and we had a very, very good celebration out in Wiri with the Prime Minister during the month. Secondly, there'll be a few in the house here from Otahuhu, and of course we celebrated the opening of Toia, a $31 million pool, library and recreation centre complex in Otahuhu. It was a great occasion to those of you here. Thank you for being here. Of course, Sir John's not here at the moment, but I briefly want to acknowledge hello.
Oh, good.
Oh, that's nice.
Someone's leaning on the wall.
That improves it.
So we've got nice ambience. Thank you for stopping leaning on the wall. I want to acknowledge the 40th anniversary of Sir John's breaking of the world mile record. Of course, he's one of our colleagues, not here at the moment, but it was a fabulous breakfast. Many from the south side were present in support of him, and of course it was a big, big city event, 500 people there. So it was great that we were able to acknowledge Sir John in that way, and also, of course, Dick was there to commemorate that event with him. So big occasion for the Chamber and big occasion for the city. Now, I want to acknowledge next the passing of 4 of our community, and I'm going to do it in this way. I'll acknowledge them together, and then I'll ask the chamber and the community to stand as a sign of respect for each of them. First of all, I want to acknowledge the passing of George Gear. As a former North Shore Mayor and long-serving National MP, George Gear passed away at the age of 88. The fact that at the age of 83, not that long ago, he graduated from AUT with a Masters of Philosophy demonstrates the kind of man that George was. George was MP for Auckland's North Shore from 1966 to 1990, holding senior cabinet posts including health, transport, energy, housing and rail. He was also Deputy Leader of the National Party. From 1991 to 94, George was New Zealand's High Commissioner in London, and he was the Mayor of North Shore from 1995 to 1998. From 1967 to 1987, George, a founding member of the Public Relations Institute, campaigned with local residents for a hospital in the North Shore, and he became the first patient to have a major operation at that hospital after being diagnosed with bowel cancer. He was known for his polite and diplomatic style and was regarded as a competent and diligent administrator in Parliament. He made a huge contribution also to this city. Survived by his wife of 64 years, Faye, and their children, Warwick, Linda and Joanne, 5 grandchildren and 3 great-grandchildren. Secondly, I want to acknowledge Logan Brewer, a uniquely talented and nationally celebrated man, a real visionary whose creativity and cultural inspiration enriched everyone. An acclaimed designer and sculptor, Logan was known for a number of high-profile works, including projects for the Commonwealth Games in Auckland in 1990. He did the opening event, the National Maritime Museum and Auckland Zoo. His latest project was the Waitemata Sculpture Series. Born and bred in Auckland, Logan spent the last decades of his life in his much-loved Northcote, on his much-loved Waitemata, an expanse of water that he said drew him back to the area like the pull of the tide itself. His contribution to film and television was recognised in 1990 when he was charged with designing a physical environment to house endangered Tasmanian devils at Auckland Zoo. He was 69, survived by his wife Lindsay and their 6 children. Thirdly, I wish to recognise Alwyn Gordon Vetty. For 15 years after the 1979 Air New Zealand Flight 901 Mount Erebus crash, Captain Gordon Vetty pursued his conviction and experienced crew could not simply fly straight into a mountain. In his work, Gordon discovered that in certain conditions the powerful effect of whiteout eliminated visual borders and that pilots might not see obstacles as big as mountains directly in front of them. Captain Vetty's work formed the basis of Justice Mahn's report, finally tabled in Parliament in 1999 and hailed as a vindication for pilots. Dubbed a hero of the skies after heeding a distress call from a small Cessna pilot in trouble in the Pacific Ocean and directing the pilot to land just as the plane was running out of fuel, Gordon was 82 when he died this month. The rescue was the subject of movie Mercy Mission and the book Emergency Crisis on the Flight Deck. The subject of 2 movies and the recipient of numerous honours for heroics carried out while flying DC-10s for Air New Zealand, Gordon wrote the book Impact Erebus in 1983. He was awarded the New Zealand Order of Merit in 2007, described by Gordon's son Mark as a final congratulations for the country and much deserved. I want to finally acknowledge this morning the passing of Basil Thomas Silcock. Basil passed away peacefully in August 17 on his 95th year at the Edmund Hillary Hospital. He and his beloved wife Marge were living together at the retirement village. Basil was a legend of the Pakuranga community, served on the local board and was its chair for a number of years. He was a much-loved father of Graham and Judy, partner of Dennis and a grandfather to 3 and a great-grandfather of 1 and an outstanding man. Can I please now ask you all in this room to stand in recognition of those people who have passed away through the month. Tā toko, tā toko, tā toko mai. Kia ora. Yep. Oh, right, okay. There any declarations of interest? Oh, right. Okay, so. The previous one. All right, need to move the confirmation of the minutes. Seconder, please, Councillor Cowell. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Those against, passed. Right. Right, now we have a petition, and I want to welcome the representatives from Seoul, if you would like to introduce yourselves each to us. Kia ora, and you are bringing us a petition that in particular relates to a notice of motion that we will consider after your petition and also input from others. So, kia ora and good morning.
Kia ora. Tēnā koutou katoa and greetings to His Worship Mayor Liam Brown, our Deputy Mayor Penny Holst and councillors. My name is Waimaria McFarland. I'm a founding member of Soul, Save Our Unique Landscape. I'd like to introduce to my left Ben Corbett, Tanya Newton and Haki Wilson, and also acknowledge other founding members of Soul that can't be with us today. I'd just now like to invite Haki Wilson to conduct the mihi mihi.
Kia ora.
E kororia he maunga rongo ki te whenua, whakaaro pai ki ngā tāngata katoa. Āmini. Ko poke tāpapa te maunga, ko ōrua rangi te aua, ko te mānuka o hotu roa te moana. Ko makaurau te marae, ko tāmaki makaurau te tupuna whare. Ko tāmaki tua tahi me tuarua ngā whare kai, ko hape te tangata, ko hua kaiwaka te rangatira, ko kaiwhare, te kaitiaki, ko te wai o hua, te iwi. Nō reira, rire, hau, pai mārire.
Pai mārire. Got it.
Okay, so who we are. Soul represents over 4,000 local, national and international community members, whānau, friends and anyone with an interest in the land in question, based on our culture, history and our environment. First of all, we want to say we do not oppose housing initiatives or development, but are proactively working towards the protection and preservation of the unique landscape of ihumātao. Today we hope to convince you all that ihumātao needs to be protected and that the governing body of Auckland Council will support us in regard in revoking SHA 62 at 545 Ororangi Road, Mangere. The entire ihumātao area is a cultural landscape embedded with identity, meaning and significance, both from Māori and European settlement. The land on which SHA 62 will be situated is adjacent to the Otuataua Stonefields. It includes wāhi tapu sites such as burial caves, lava tunnel entrances and natural springs. We're just going to go over a little timeline of some key events.
Before I start, the history that I'm about to present to you this morning was handed down from our leader from Te Waiohua, Morris Wilson, my grandfather. Kei kone tonu koutou ke roto i o mātou ngākau. So in 800 AD, the archaeological evidence places our ancestors' settlement in Tamaki around the shores of the Manukau Harbour. In 1300s, Hape arrives on the shores of the Manukau Harbour and ascends Puke Tāpapa, te tāpapatanga a Hape, the flat hill that Hape lay upon. From 1350, te hekinga nui o ngā waka e whetu, the Great Migration of the Seven Canoe. The Tainui Waka enters the Tamaki estuary and portaged over the land into the Manukau Harbour. There, Hoturoa sees Hape's footprints. Hoturoa acknowledges Hape, and in return, Hape returns the cause back to the Tainui Waka. Hence, Karanga a Hape. 1863 to 1865, 1,100 acres of ihumātao land is confiscated by the Crown as punishment for our allegiance to the kingitanga. 1866, 32 acres of that land is granted to the Wallace family, leaving Te Waiohua almost landless.
Then we fast forward 100 years, 1990s. Water Care Services in partnership with Makaurau Marae restore the Ihumātao foreshore. 2001, the then Minister of Conservation, Nick Smith, opens the Otuataua Stonefield Historic Reserve, referring to it as the birthplace of Manukau. 2007, former Manukau City Council proposed zone changes to free up land for the expanding airport zone. The Wallace Block, 545 Oruarangi Road, was to remain rural land, zoned open public space, as Manukau City Council intended to purchase that land to complete the Otuataua Stonefields. All of these proposed zone changes became operative in 2011.
Now, councillors, this is where it all starts to get quite tricky. Prior to 2012, the former Manukau City Council, local iwi and the community have been planning towards the Mangere Gateway Heritage Project. The Wallace family applied to the Environmental Court in the same year to have the MUL extended over their blocks. The new Auckland Council and Makaurau Marae stood together to oppose the extension of the MUL. The new Auckland City Council worked alongside Makaurau to oppose that. Now, the Environmental Court ordered the Auckland Council to extend the MUL and rezone the land to future urban. This essentially ended councils, local iwi and the community plans for Mangere Gateway Heritage Project. Now, that takes us into 2013. On the 13th of September, the Housing Accord Special Housing Act was passed. This Act enables rapid consent for intensive housing. The timeframes introduced in this Act are entirely inappropriate given the broad context of the site. In the same month, sites of significance were listed in the proposed Auckland Unitary Plan. 545 Oruarangi Road was one of the 10 significant sites that was listed in the proposed Auckland Unitary Plan. Otuataua Stonefields was also one of those. Then you have in November, the Wallace family, through their lawyer, made a formal request to Auckland Council for the establishment of a special housing area at 545 Oruarangi Road. Now, we're into 2014. Fletcher's Residential lodges an application with the Overseas Investment Office to purchase the Wallace block prior to its announcement as a special housing area. Then you have in May, our council votes to recommend to the Housing Minister, Nick Smith, that this land be designated as special housing area. We understand, it is our understanding that in reaching that decision, we believe that Auckland Council were not fully briefed on the cultural, historical, and archaeological significance of this site. Now, since then, there has, in comparison to normal RMA processes, limits any meaningful consultation with those affected by these developments, such as this. The residents of Ihumātao and our wider community were unaware that this area had been established as an SHA until we saw pegs being surveyed on the land. Only then did we start making our own inquiries into what was happening there. Now that takes us into 2015. In June, Fletcher's Residential lodges an application with Auckland Council to rezone 545 Oruarangi Road for mixed housing area. After over 150 years of desecration, dislocation and misappropriation of our land, the residents and community of Ihumātao and the wider Mangere area and Auckland have had enough. We recognise that this development will not meet the needs of this community and instead have adverse social, environmental, cultural and historical effects. Therefore, together, SOA are taking further steps. We are preparing an urgent application to the Waitangi Tribunal regarding the Housing Act the Special Housing Act and the way it is being implemented, as it does not honour the Treaty of Waitangi, or Te Tiriti or Waitangi. The Overseas Investment Office is undertaking a review of their decision to approve the purchase over the Wallace block. We are presenting our petition to Council today, and we plan to take our petition of over 4,000 signatures representing people local, nationally, all over who are supporting our kaupapa, and we plan to take that to Parliament. However, today, councillors, we also present a viable solution. We present today an alternative option to prevent further desecration to this whenua.
Now, when we set the opportunity for the presenting of the petition up, we made it quite clear timing. So where are we at in terms of finalising now, Brendan?
2 minutes.
2 minutes? Yeah. Excellent. Kia ora.
The alternative we propose is a land swap. It's a very common process, and we think it will work perfectly in this situation. Fletcher Construction has a long connection with Iamatau. They're rebuilding Auckland Airport at present, and they were the main contractors responsible for the Mangere wastewater treatment plant upgrade that has massively improved the Manukau Harbour. We acknowledge the urgent need for housing in Mangere, so we have proposed a more viable alternative to SHA 62. The 33-hectare block of council-owned land on Ascot Road is ideally suited to the purposes of the special housing area, addressing the needs for affordable housing in an area of high housing needs, whilst protecting our historic rural areas. The extensive infrastructure already in place at Ascot Road will hugely reduce costs to council and speed up development. The social infrastructure and amenities are non-existent at Hiamatau, but are extensive at the Ascot Road site. We would like to work with Fletchers and the council to develop a new housing area on this site. And we agree with David Halsey of Fletcher Residential, who was a signatory to the Business and Housing Group submission to the Auckland Council in the 2011 Auckland Plan discussion. He stated that the MUL needs to recognise no-go areas, for example, areas of environmental or ecological significance, landscapes of significance, and sites and areas of cultural and community value. Ihimatau is definitely a no-go area, and Ascot Road is a ready-to-go area.
Okay.
So in summary, we're not asking the council to revoke the SHA. We are asking you to review your decision to recommend that an SHA be created at 545 Ōrārangi on the basis that you did not have sufficient information in front of you to make that decision. And also on the basis that opposition of the local board and local iwi has not been recognised. We understand that only the Minister can revoke the SHA. Indeed, we are grateful to have seen the letter from Minister now acknowledging that he has the power to revoke the SHA. The Minister initially told our MP, Su'a Williams, this was a council issue, so we have come to the council. You are telling us that this is a matter for the Minister, so we will go to the Minister. The Minister will tell us that he acted on council's recommendation. So, we are asking that you support us by acknowledging that you should not have recommended the creation of an SHA at Ōrārangi Road and recommend to the Minister the alternative site on Ascot Road. Therefore, we request that a resolution be made to put a hold on the consenting process and that representatives from Council, SOL, local iwi, local board and Fletcher's Residential meet to urgently progress the option of a land swap and develop special housing at the Ascot Road site, creating a rural buffer around Otuataua Stonefields and completing the Otuataua Stonefields as it was intended in 2007, protecting, preserving and saving our unique landscape for future generations. We would now like to present our petition in support of this request.
Kia ora. Thank you.
I now call upon Anya Tahiri.
Thank you.
Ako.
Right. Can I have that, please? Councillors, what I would like to now do is thank you. We also have further consideration from Te Warana Taua. So I want to hear now from him, if that's all right, so that we can get balance. Then I'm going to have questions, if that's all right.
Just a question, Mayor.
Yep.
Has he been approved as a spokesperson for Sol?
Yeah. Sorry. I didn't
Just
quite
the question. We were told in preparation for this meeting we had submitted several names.
Yes.
And then we were told that we could only submit the one. Is this in relation to that recommendation?
No, this is an opportunity for public input. So we have a petition, which is dealt with first, and then we have further opportunity for public input, and we will hear from Te Warana Taua in
That's
public
fine.
input.
I would just like to state that at a marae meeting, we had the support of the Makaurau Marae Reservation Trust. We also have the support of the Makaurau Marae Committee. And in a marae whānau hui that Te Warana Taua was present at on the 12th of July, in questioning him, we also had his support then. And we have continued with all their support, as well as the 4,000 petitions that we have presented today.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, so I want to move the approval of the receipt of the submission and petition. Second, Councillor Kathy Casey. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Those against, passed. We'll now have public input, and we have here input from Te Warana Taua, Chair of the Kawarau Iwi Authority, and Te Ahiwaru Iwi, Kawarau Marae Trust. Kia ora matua.
Well, if you're going to swap land, I won't have to give my... Before I start, Mr. Mayor, is that possible, the swap of land?
We are dealing here with a notice of motion that we will deal with today relating to the revocation. We'll deal specifically with that, and out of that may well come further discussions. So my suggestion is that we deal specifically with the reason why we came together today, which was as a consequence of an application or notice of motion for the revocation. Now, of course, this is something of a moving feast. You know, I'm well used to a fluidity in the public domain. So my view is, and I think it's important that we tease out the issue of, and the specific legal matter that we have to deal with here, and that is whether we could or would revoke a special housing area having approved it. And I'm going to be really clear on that today. And then secondly, any further discussions, Te Warana, and you and I have had discussions on this matter in the past, as I have with iwi, relating to this land. And as you know, my roots are firmly in the south, and so have been a part of discussions over recent decades. And progress has been made, but this is a specific issue here.
Okay.
So Te Warana, you know better than anyone the ins and outs of dealing within the political and the resource management realm. So if you can just address yourself to the matter that we're discussing before us that we know of today.
You're the chief.
Kia ora.
Waku mihi he orit ki tērā waku tamaiti I haere I mua I au. Pērā hoki o kuiwi me taku waka a taimai. Me ngā mihi ki o tātou tini aitua, Me tō tātou kīngi e noho mai rai runga i te torona tapu na tūrona mātua. Me tuku te aroha ki aia ki tana hoa wahine a rāua whāna putono i te parekahueriki. Pai mārira. E te rangatira te koro mātua tēnā koe. Koutou ko tō kaunihira. Oruarangi Special Housing Area. Thank you for the opportunity to present to your council on matters pertaining to the Puketapapa Papakainga, and more specifically, the proposed special housing area at Oruarangi Road. I am the chairman of the Makaurau Marae Māori Trust, the body mandated since 2004 to represent Makaurau Marae whānau on matters outside the environs of the Makaurau Marae Reservation. You have the annexures. I'm also the chairperson of the Kawerau Iwi Tribal Authority, one of the iwi that have ancient and enduring interest in this whenua, and who are also owners of ancestral lands within the Papakainga. You have an extra too. I am writing to make clear the position of both these entities and their beneficiaries, and also address some of the misinformation being propagated by Sol. Historical significance. The Oruarangi SHA is located in Ihumātao and is part of the Puketapapa Papakainga, the oldest continually occupied Māori settlement in Tāmaki Makaurau. Ihumātao is a place of deep spiritual significance to my people. Its many volcanic cones are all considered sacred and are ancestral places from which we derive our mana and connection to the land. Ihumātao is also significant due to its associations with the arrival of the Tainui Waka in Tāmaki and settlement there by members of its crew. Hape, also known as Rakataura, was the senior tohunga aboard the Tainui. The full name of our Papakainga is Te Puketapapa Taga a Hape. Commemorates the precise location that Hape directed Tainui to land and establish a settlement here in Tāmaki. We are the descendants of Hape, and the original settlement endures to this day. However, no one has felt more keenly the impacts of colonisation and urbanisation. Since the unlawful invasion and confiscation of our tribal lands in 1863, the sanctity of our kāinga has been violated. Many of our sacred maunga have been destroyed by quarrying. The harbour that sustained our people has been devastated by pollution, along with its every tributary. Only recently, our ancient burial grounds were excavated to make way for the new Auckland International Airport runway. If I can pause there for a minute, sir. At a meeting held at the marae, or the airport marae is known as, Te Manukanuka Hoturuan, the airport were looking for a home for tukutuku, and there were 3 marae present at the time. At that time, one of the people from one of our marae stood up and said that they wanted to have a karakia to lift the tapu, to allow for the airport to begin its development on this, for the new runway. When we found out about when we found that the exact place was where many of our tupuna had been buried, I objected and said that we had ancestors that were buried along there, and it was known to us as a whenua parekura. We were told that the farmers had farmed it for over 100 years, and 87 bodies later is what was found. It gives you an idea of Ihumātao. The Environment Court decision in 2011, Manukau City Council, Makaurau Marae and Te Kawerau Tribal Authority appealed to the Environment Court against a private plan change that sought to rezone the land in question from open space to residential use. Tribal members gave traditional evidence at the hearings, noting the significant cultural value of the land, stating our position that it is a rare and living cultural landscape that requires protection. Archaeological, historical and geological evidence was also given regarding the respective values of the landscape. Despite the strong and sustained objections of mana whenua and the evidence given, the court ruled in favour of the plan change, thus enabling the land to be rezoned future urban under the Manukau Operative District Plan. SHA approval. In 2013, Auckland Council and the government approved a special housing area to develop 520 houses, literally on the back doorstep of our papakainga, making the provisions envisioned in the Operative District Plan an overnight reality. No consultation with the appropriate mana whenua representatives occurred prior to this approval, even though the Housing Project Office was fully aware of the historical significance of the Otuataua area. Despite protestations of the MMMT Tikita directly to the Mayor's office, meetings with Housing Project Office officials and considered legal opinions, including, Your Worship, meetings with yourself, we were unable to have the SHA decision overturned. To my knowledge, we have pursued every legal avenue available to prevent this development going forward, but to no avail. This being evident from early in the SHA process, I was authorised by both the MMT and TKITA to enter into discussions with Fletcher's, the developers of the Orurangi SHA. At this point, I must acknowledge the legacy of my cousin, the late Mary Ann Roberts, who was no stranger to this council. No one was more vocal in opposing this SHA on behalf of our papakainga. However, before she passed, Mary Ann also saw the necessity of working with Fletchers to protect our ancestral values and interests, as the development would happen with or without our involvement. She was involved in the early discussions with Fletchers on behalf of MMMT until her health no longer allowed her to be. As I put forward our position, I'm mindful of the passion and dedication with which Mary Ann advocated for her people. If I can say at this point, Mr. Mayor, that the only reason we began to talk with Fletchers was that our lawyer had written to Parliament, to the outgoing ministers, both Peter Sharples and Tariana Turia. We got no assistance from there. And we were also informed that to change things, there needed to be a law change, in fact, overturn the law, the act that had been placed on this land. Where am I? Oh. Over the past months, I've been in negotiations with Fletchers to ensure that our cultural, heritage, environmental and social imperatives are accommodated in the development. We have also provided Fletchers with a cultural impact assessment in accordance with the proposed unitary plan. This has been a challenging process, and although not ideal, I am satisfied with where we have come to. Fletchers have agreed for me to share with you their proposal to address our key concerns, as outlined below. The buffer strip, 80-metre wide, running along the length of the northern SHA boundary, bordering the village, to be returned in fee simple to our people. The buffer strip running along the northwestern boundary to incorporate the Maunga contours within the SHA and protect the heritage features along the lower slopes. Financial contribution to Makoto Marae Māori Trust. Housing partnership to assist with the development of affordable housing for our whānau, our people from Makoto. Assurances that Noan Wahitapu will not be disturbed by the development and will be ameliorated where possible. Protocols regarding the discovery and protection of koiwi and taonga. Return of part of our ancestral maunga, te puketapapatanga ahape, back to the people. Protect the view line to the maunga. Provision within the structure plan to accommodate a future cultural visitors centre. Internally focused boundary, edge roads to ensure development is self-contained and cannot sprawl. Water-sensitive stormwater design utilising natural treatment train approach. Ecological planting. Urban design which is sensitive to the contour and natural features of the land. Incorporation of Te Aranga design principles. An undertaking to support our mandated authorities in partnership with Council to design and implement a Papakainga development plan as a means of cultural offsetting and to be funded directly by the development contributions, pending, of course, agreements by Council. The proposed gifting of the buffer strip land and portion of Puketapapa Maunga, when I say portion, part of the Wallace land has within it a portion of the Maunga, if looking at it from our village, the left-hand side. The Puketapapa Maunga is a watershed for the people of Makaurau. It will be the first time since the confiscations of the 1860s that such ancestrally significant land will be returned, and that's in ownership, to the descendants of the traditional owners, not via the Crown or Council intervention, but through a privately negotiated settlement. Can I say that that maunga holds ancestors of ours? And I also want to say that when you have to be the person that has to go in and negotiate with people like Fletcher's or any other developer, sometimes you almost get thrown out of their office because you push too hard. But sometimes you're seen by your iwi as sitting on this side or that side of the fence, but someone has to do it. And so away I went. Now I'm going to talk about the group soul. I understand...
Te Warana, can
Yeah.
I just... now, I'm mindful of the fact that we had about 7 or 8 minutes
Okay.
for Soul, and I'm concerned to ensure fairness and appropriate procedure.
I can skip
So,
through... So
I think
I can go to the...
yeah, I
No
think
problem.
just go to the conclusion, because I want to give the opportunity of a few minutes on questions.
Yes, of course.
And then I want to hear from officers so that we can put this in a right frame. So, Warren?
Okay. So basically, in concluding, what you see at home, at our village, at our Papakainga, X amount of homes. But we have several hundred individuals and families, their children, who would like to return to live back at the Papakainga and to raise their children where they themselves were raised. There have been many promises over the years with regards to housing, even from our own people further south, but it has never happened. Even the promise of land to be returned to us. So I put this question to everyone in this room, and I put this back to Council. He aha te mea nui he tangata. Now, if not for this development, where there will be affordable homes, not the norm that you see in every SHA, but much better than that, is it not important for our people to come back and live at the village and enjoy quality homes to live in. Because there's only 80 of our homes at Ihumātao right now. There will never be room for our people to come back if there is no housing. It's all right for people who don't live in the village, or it's all right for people who do live in the village. But what about our whanaunga who will never come back, can never come back, whose children and grandchildren will never be able to live in their papakainga, but only hear about it through granddaddy? They too, sir, have a right.
Kia ora tō wānanga. All right. Now, councillors, I think what we'll do first, rather than sort of play musical chairs, is ask if there are questions of Te Warana, then ask the Sol team to come back and have questions of Sol. So I've got questions of Te Warana for a start, please. Councillor Kathy.
You began your kōrero by saying if the land swap goes ahead, you might not need to speak. And I understand that you did everything possible to try and oppose the SHA and failed. If there was a possibility of a land swap between Auckland Council and Fletcher's that allowed Fletcher's to build at least 4 times as many houses with better infrastructure and protected in perpetuity the lands around Otuatawa Stonefields, would you support that?
Personally, I think it's a good idea. I think it's a very good idea. But we are still faced, if that happened, with the possibility of other developments on this land in the future because of the change of law that allowed from the open space to be able to develop. I think we will still be faced with that same problem. And so for me, if anyone's going to develop there, it would need to be in partnership with our people and to ensure that our people will have homes. And right now, there's only one group that has posed this before us and has also very clearly put on paper that they will return half of our mountain. Only half, because half of the maunga is in this land. The other half is owned by council. If we got that half from them, council could give us back the other half. We then have the maunga in total back in our ownership.
Yeah, okay, let's not get carried away.
Just to
It's
follow
well
up.
beyond the question being asked.
To follow up, my understanding is contrary to your own with regard to a revocation. I understand the Minister can revoke at the request of the Governor-General. So that the process starts here today by this council looking at revoking our recommendation to the Minister. Then, as you said, as Sol said, it's over to the government to look at the actual classification of the special housing area. Thank you.
Yeah, okay. Right, any other questions, councillors? Councillor Al.
Tēnā rā koutou katoa, and I just want to acknowledge all the whānau from Māngere here. Matua, can you tell me whether, again, it's been mentioned and mooted around the Ascot Road. Now, that brings into question now what you just said around further homes being built at Oruarangi. Would that include Papakainga as well?
Yeah,
And would you just, sorry, through your worship, and would Papakainga be one of the issues that you'll be looking at Ascot Road?
well, it's not our papakainga.
No,
is it?
exactly.
It's Hainamana Gardens.
Thank you. But I mean, the homes then around Papakainga, that's...
Papakainga is where we are now.
Thank you. I just wanted to get that out.
Okay. Councillor Chris. trustee.
Kia ora, Te Warana. Thank you. I just want to check a couple of things. You're here on behalf of the Makaurau Marae Māori Trust and Te Kawarau.
Yep.
And you're just checking you're mandated to be here to represent
Right there.
those two entities. And I just want to check on page 4 under Soul in your presentation, there's a reference to the Makaurau Marae Reservation Trust.
Yeah.
Can you just explain that entity and how it is different to the others, and how are they represented here?
It's simple. Every marae in the country will have a set of trustees. Well, most of them will. And they are appointed by the Māori Land Court. They, in fact, hold the mana to the, if you like, the four corner posts and all that land contained within, which is the marae. So they are appointed by the Māori Land Court, and quite often, as is in our case, you have a marae committee. The marae committee is responsible for day-to-day activities on the marae. However, it is the marae reservation trustees that hold ultimate say over the marae itself. And those are the people that are appointed by the Māori Land Court and for that purpose.
Okay, so the mandate of the Reservation Trust sits above the Marae Committee?
That's correct.
And so I'm coming to this reasonably cold Te Warana, so important to understand the mandates of the various bodies here. And according to that paragraph there, it is the Marae Reservation Trust which has mandate also over the strategic issues?
No.
That sits with the Māori Marae Trust and Te Kawarau.
For the marae, it sits with Makaurau Marae Māori Trust. That was set up in, I think, 2004 by Kaumātua at the time for the purpose of dealing with governance and those sorts of things.
Okay, I've got it now. Thank you. Clear.
Kia ora. Okay. Councillor Bill.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Tēnā koe te kōrana. Good to see you again, sir. When you talk about the potential financial contributions for a housing partnership, has there any been numbers talked about or percentage of the total housing that may be enabled by the SHA, sir?
Okay. Firstly, so you get the 80-metre strip, and that's because we were able to, out of the 520s that they were 20 homes that they were allowed to build, we got 40 knocked off. And even though I was told that might be a cost of 22 mil to Fletcher's, I couldn't care two hoots really about that. But it did mean that we would end up owning the buffer zone, which at least sees development 80 metres away from the fence line of our village.
Yep.
Then coming to your query, we have worked with them to, well, I've got it down here actually, very clearly, to look at housing for whānau for round home. By the Act, they are, I think, to have at least 10%. That is to be, what do you call it, affordable. But also we've got them to, should they go ahead with the development, build at the very extreme, or the other end by Umatau Road, which is a T-junction, and so by the time they get up near the Wallace homestead, it's around 7 years. That would give our people enough time to be able to look at finance and how they might... Hang on.
It's an important point.
To look at finance and how they might get in. Because these people laughing might be the first ones that will want it and go to Punikokiri and get the...
Thank you, Te Warana.
Kia ora.
Does that answer your...
Now there are a couple other, just two more questions. Councillor Wayne.
Sure. I understand the relationship with the land, and also you're interested in obviously housing in the vicinity. In the situation that we could have, where this other area of land comes into play, is it not conceivable that a better deal might be structured over and above what you've got now?
I have the faintest idea.
May I just continue my train of thought? And that might offer more opportunity to protect taonga, a larger area of land. I don't know how hard you went into the negotiations with Fletcher's or the like.
Look, order. Stop, Wayne. Order.
Well, I'm not being disrespectful.
Wayne, stop,
I'm just
you
trying
are.
to establish. No, I'm not.
Point of order.
No, I'm not.
Point of order.
Goodness me.
I very rarely stand in this chamber, and this is not the day for anyone to start proposing things as you are. Now just stop. This is a very sensitive issue, and we're giving people the opportunity to speak. And I do not expect us to just go off on a wing. And you are, sir, and I want you to stop.
I'm
I have got the floor, so just be quiet for a second. Like that in the south side. Councillor Wayne, what we're doing is asking questions. This is going to be a process. We're going to, once we've finished asking questions of both Te Warana and the Soul representatives, then we're going to hear from the officials, all right? Because we need to get this in context for the councillors who are present here. This is an issue that we are still sort of working our way through in terms of some of the other matters that have been raised here. We're not going to, just wait, we're not going to resolve it today. I'm telling you that. But we are going to continue a discussion, and there's a little bit more work to be done in terms of some of the comments and proposals that have been made here today. But I don't want us to try and resolve it in the way that you are proposing, that we do off the hoof. I want us to actually reflect on these things appropriately. So I think you've asked Te Warana a question that is answered, and we won't go any further than that. The next question will come from Councillor Linda.
Kia ora.
Finish my question.
Kia ora, Te Warana. And I wasn't going to speak, but in light of the previous comments, we've known each other a long time, along with the Deputy Mayor, and a long and respectful relationship back in my Takiri days, right from the rahui that you placed at Tihinga, Karekare. So I guess in light of that, my question is, and this was brought up at the treaty settlement ceremony at Makaurau Marae in December 2013, when Minister Finlayson said you were a formidable negotiator, and he acknowledged that publicly. So I guess I just want to give you the opportunity to say, have you been as formidable in your negotiations with Fletcher as you were with the treaty settlement?
I bet you were.
I suppose, and I want to say this because my people know that I will fight for them. And it's all right for people here behind some who may not even be from our village to have a bit of a katakata or laugh, but I can tell you that walking into a room with strong-headed developers is not easy, but I've got used to it. And I can also say, and you know, no one can ever say I have not fought for my people. Why? Because I actually led the court case against the Wallaces in 2011. And we paid for the lawyers, and we fought very, 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 very hard, and some of those kaumātua are here today. So no one can say that I have not fought, but I will say that in the negotiations, and as I said, only if they were going to build, then we wanted something to come back to our village, and if that's the case, that's what I have negotiated for, to come back to our village. That includes housing. So it's, if it's going to go ahead, we want something out of that.
Kia ora mātua. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Okay, Councillor Arthur.
Te Ronga, just a quick question. Do you and the Marae stand together with the Soul Group for the council to find a solution?
Look, we've had our differences, that's okay. I can tell you that you show me one marae where there are not differences. But at the end of the day, we are all still whānau. But we have our differences, and sometimes they can be worked through, sometimes they can't. The door's always open.
I guess my question is, we're sitting here with the councillors to find a solution to the problem. I want to know, are we united out there to go forward?
He just said,
I think I answered that.
Yeah. Yep. You can only ask that question so many ways, Arthur.
I can get so many answers. to it.
Yeah. And the answer will be the same every time. Right. Te Warana, to yourself, and Emily, and our young rangatira there. Can I please move a recommendation that your presentation be received? Councillor Penny, second. All those in favour say aye. Aye. It's against passed. Right, cheers.
Thank you.
Kia ora. Soul team, can you come back to the table, please?
Thank you. Good one, and a big thank you, who was first.
Okay, councillors, questions to the representatives from Soul. Councillor Cathy.
I'm interested to know what your response is to what you've just heard.
We acknowledge, and we have from the beginning of this process, we have grown knowing well the struggles that our ancestors, right up to our matua here at Te Warena, have faced since what the time that the presentation has been made. But we are here as the next generation to say that we will continue the fight. We will continue. And that we are here to uphold the mana of those that have gone before us and walked in those shoes. But we ask that you include us in those discussions. We are here to support you.
Kia ora.
Yeah, and just to add on from what Waima's just said, if we can just refer you back to the two CIAs that were given by the two iwi, both stated that this development was inappropriate. We can just take it to be there, and just the history of the fight that has gone on. From there, you will know that the iwi and the people have always opposed to this development. Kia ora.
The future residential development in Stonefields, Mount Wellington is the model for this development. We know the cost of those homes. A home suitable for any family of the Manukau ward is a 3-bedroom, 3-terrace level house to the tune of $800,000 to $900,000. The 10% of the 480 homes that will be suitable for the families of the Manukau ward at $500,000, we looked at a map that shows the income mean for the Manukau ward. We are the lowest. We are in the red. These houses are not for our people. And to the tune, if affordability is at $500,000 at a 10% deposit, $50,000, where do we get that money from? At the same time, a lot of the whānau residents who live in ihumātao don't actually own their homes. I'm a classic example. We rent, okay? We have landlords of our own family homes because we simply could not afford. I don't see a viable solution for our whānau. The Waikato Tainui had started a development many years ago that we have had confirmation from them that they are ready to sit at the table and complete so that it is affordable, so that we do have homes for our whānau to come home to. To be honest, there is an exodus. A lot of our people are leaving ihumātao simply because they cannot afford, and it will continue if this development goes ahead. People are currently making plans, but they will make a last stand, like Rewi Maniapoto. Ka whawhai tonu mātou. Because this is our birthright. Our whenua is that. And that is as simple as it is.
Mr Mayor, I had another question. It relates to the the legal advice with regard to the revocation. I presume that Sol has had legal advice with regard to who can revoke. The previous speaker said that the Minister couldn't. What's your understanding of the revocation process through your legal advice?
We might just take this time to invite our lawyer, Cameron Hockley, up, if that's okay.
Yep.
Can we please?
Kia ora tātou. In relation to that question, the situation seems to be clear that the Minister has made sure by the legislation that his hands are tied and that those conditions need to be changed. But through the Governor-General, as you note, there is a different process. So there is a way of attempting to convince the Governor-General. However, that still is a very high threshold.
Yeah.
So the order of doing things then is the Council, the Government, the Governor-General, or is it the Council, the Governor-General, the Government?
In terms of the revocation, I think the revocation is the right gesture. I don't think it changes the status. And then following from that, it would be a form of an appeal to the Governor-General.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Right. Fine.
Sure. The question that I put to you is that what you're suggesting occurs is there is another area of land that's put in the mix to try and negotiate a new deal. And I'm assuming that that new deal that you're proposing involves a larger area of land around Stonefields that is effectively preserved, reserved.
Yeah, if any of you have had a chance to look at the Fletcher plans, they have designed a housing estate to fit within the confines and the constraints of the archaeological area. A big part of Puketapapa Tanga Ahape extends into that Fletcher's block that they plan to buy. That has an area, an overlay of geological significance. Fletcher's is not giving that back out of the goodness of their heart. They are not allowed to build on it. That contains the Urupa. If you're familiar with the land, it is a very wet land. There is bogs, there are springs in one part of it. The 80-metre strip that Fletcher said they're going to give back to the community, give back to the iwi, is their stormwater system. That is where the stormwater will pond. It will be the lakes. They have to include that to meet the requirements of a modern subdivision, so that what water they discharge into the Orurangi Awa is not contaminated. That system, a beautifully designed, engineered system, fantastic. It's good that they've designed it like that, but that is not actually out of the generosity of their heart. That's because they have to build that. And fortunately, in some ways, it's along the boundary of the Papakainga. But it's not Fletcher's being generous in giving it back. It's not Fletcher's returning the maunga. The issue that Te Warana raised, he really should raise with the council. The council owns Puketapapa Tanga Hape, and it would be a wonderful gesture if that was. It would be a wonderful gesture if that was returned. I agree with you, brother. But the 33 hectares along at Ascot Road is a different arrangement. It's got sea views. It's next to the beautiful park of wastewater care that's promoting it in your rates bill that you got just the other day. You would have had an invitation to go down to see Auckland's best kept secret. This is what $500 million of ratepayers' money has got for us. We have a world-class facility that no longer needs these surrounding areas because there is no smell. All the biosolids have been dealt with, the sludge has been dealt with, it's been landscaped. 100,000 trees have been planted while we're here right now. That's going on right now. They've created a beautiful landscape that will free up that land that is no longer required for the purposes of their consent for the commissioning of the new plant. That's what we're talking about. It's connected to Mangere. 5 minutes walk to George Bolt Drive. The new rail tunnel that you've paid $32 million to build is 5 minutes walk from this subdivision. There are 8 bus routes that go 5 minutes walk, 8 bus routes on Kirkby Road, hospitals, there's an ambulance plant, there's an ATM, there's a post office, there's tattooists, there's tattoo removers, there's food, whatever you want. It's in walking distance. And if we're going to create this model of a livable city, if we're going to use the SHA and all the provisions that it gives developers to intensify, to go higher, then this is a chance to build it on this piece of land and really model what we're talking about. Penny mentioned that she is desperate for more houses. she's desperate that developers start using what the provisions in this Act. Well, Penny, this land will give you a chance to actually talk to developers and make a living example of what we're talking about here. And the people that live there won't need cars if they don't.
So then what happens to 545 Ororangi Road is that we continue to protect, preserve and save it, and that currently we're working on an application to have it recognised as a World Heritage Site. So that is another step we are taking. And then we honour the Māngere Gateway Heritage Project and look at tourism initiatives.
Yeah. Okay. Kia ora. Right. Councillor Penny H.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Kia ora to the members of Seoul and I just want to acknowledge, along with my colleague, Councillor Linda Tuarana as well. We all have a long and very respectful relationship over many decades. My question now follows neatly on from that last statement. And I guess, Mr Mayor, we're getting a little bit ahead of ourselves in a way, where there are two very separate issues. There's the revocation, or the I think what was put very clearly by the lawyer. The revocation is a gesture. So let's be a little bit honest about what can and can't be achieved here. There's also the future of this critical piece of land, and the fact that it has been rezoned. We lost in the Environment Court. We stood side by side with the marae and the local community. We fought to keep that as open space. We lost in the Environment Court. The battle's been had. We've lost that. It has been changed. The zoning has been changed. So my question follows on from if a land swap, if Watercare/council simply cannot make a land swap work, if there's a mind to look at the land swap, SHA or no SHA, land now zoned for housing and building. The only way that that's going to change is either a land swap happens or we purchase that land. So, we need to, well, hang on, before, I know it's all very easy to clap and applaud. I'm not saying let's buy the land, so, I need to be really honest about that. The reality is, and I can see councillors, we're all leaning into this. This is a really heartstrings issue. This is our communities come to us with kind of tears and heart and aroha for this land, but we need to be really honest about what we can and can't do here. I don't think if councillors are honest, we cannot just go out and buy every bit of land.
You need to ask
I'm going to
question
ask
here.
my question, but I'm not planning on speaking for the rest of this entire meeting, I think. So we need to be honest about that. I also think, Mr Mayor, there's been an awful lot of build-up about what this council can and can't do, so I'm just trying to kind of manage expectations. If we cannot, we either decide today that we're going to go into discussions with Watercare or not go into discussions with Watercare. With the greatest of respect to our people who've signed the SHA revocation, that's a side issue. The SHA is immaterial to this. This is a big bunch of people who own this piece of land and who are going to build on it, SHA or not SHA. So I think SHA sideshow. Mr Mayor, my question is, and does Seoul agree, that the issue for them is more about land swap as a way forward? I think I'm hearing from them that they're also understanding that SHA, not SHA, is kind of a bit of a side issue, apart from timeframes. Thoughts?
Firstly, I was going to say that in terms of the Environment Court process, the land, the SHA land, has been zoned future urban, and the step that then would have to be taken is again to get it rezoned one more time. So there is still another stage, which could involve the Environment Court, and that question of protection will pop up again, even if that proceeds.
But yeah, I think you're right on there, Penny. We could get bogged down in these layers of legal challenges, and essentially you're dead right. The issue is, if we can negotiate a land swap, we short circuit all of that unnecessary bureaucratic hassling, and if we can come to a far better resolution, then we would love it. I'll give you another hug.
Okay, we're just trying to work out where the debate is. Thanks, Mr Mayor.
Right, I think councillors, that's probably enough of a discussion. We need to now get to a piece of advice from our officials and then decision making. To Waimaria and the team, thank you very much for your presentation on behalf of the community. We've received your petition. Now we're going to receive some advice and make some decisions. Kia ora koutou katoa.
Your Worship.
Just hang on, Alf. Now I want to ask officers. We need a Catherine, a Dean. Anyone else? Rees. Oh, that's right. Right, Councillor Alf.
Your Worship, I know that after the Soul Group gave their kōrero and that, you went to public input, and I know that the Chair and some members of the local board, Māngere o Tāhuhu local board, are here, and I've spoken to them, and they're hoping as well to have a talk. So whether it's now or whether it's after.
Look, I had no idea that request came.
Yeah, but I'm just sort of pointing that at Your Worship, and I'll just wait for your call.
Yeah, look, I really want to take officers' views first, I think.
Okay.
We need to try and get this matter moving along. It's a big day. We've got a couple of potential announcements this afternoon, and there are matters that we need to deal with through the balance of this agenda. So let's try and keep things moving now. I've got Dean and I've got Catherine.
Look, thank you, Your Worship. So maybe it would be helpful for us to give a summary of some of the things we've heard, but where we consider we're at, and then we're certainly available for taking any questions to assist.
Yep.
Would that be helpful?
Yep, absolutely.
So as I think Deputy Mayor Hulse summarised as well as I could where this situation is. We were signatories to the Hashar bill. We have signed up to creating special housing areas to address both provision of housing for growth and affordability. And we have been working through taking requests for the creation of special housing areas from across all of Auckland. This was a request. It's the view of staff that we were informed of the issues, and in turn we informed the governing body in the process of making a decision around whether to create an SHA at Ruarangi. The only other comment I'd make is that the way the Hashar legislation is crafted, it focuses on pace and fast tracking. And I don't think we should lose sight of that. So that affects both the outcome, which is the availability of housing throughout Auckland, but it also influences and sets different criteria for whether a special housing area can be created or not. And that includes the adequacy of infrastructure and amongst other things, and it accelerates the designing provisions within the proposed Auckland Unitary Plan in anticipation of that arriving. It also relies on us informing adjacent landowners in particular, but it doesn't rely on the traditional RMA consultation requirements. So on that note, I think just having set that scene on where we're at, I'd like to hand over to Catherine Anderson, Chief Legal Counsel, and she can just remind us where we're at with respect to the decision that you've made and the Minister's decision. Thank you.
Thanks. As in the paper that was circulated prior to the meeting, this legislation, as Dean said, is very specialised. It's got a limited lifetime, and it's designed fundamentally to fast-track the supply of land. In terms of the processes, you're all familiar with how matters come to you for consideration to recommend to the Minister as to whether an area should be a special housing area. As we've set out in the paper for you in broad terms, which is really just restating what's clear on the face of the legislation, is that you make a recommendation to the Minister decides whether or not to declare an area an SHA, doesn't have to, despite the recommendation from Council, In this particular instance, more than a year ago, the Minister recommended that this be an SHA. An order in council was prepared and published, available to all the world, declaring this land a special housing area. What the legislation does is limit in very clear terms the basis on which the Minister could revoke an SHA. And what I should have said perhaps before I went into what the Minister can do is the legislation is time-bound, and at the end, in September next year, every area that's been declared an SHA is by law disestablished. And what the Minister has is a legal power in advance of that date by which all SHAs cease to exist, to be able to recommend that an area be revoked. And he can only do that on very limited grounds, and only one of those grounds is relevant here, and that is whether the Minister's satisfied that the special housing area no longer meets the criteria that is set out in section 16, subsection 3 of the Act. And so those are three areas, and as you will have seen from the Minister's letter that's attached to the paper to you, the Minister doesn't have any information to support him making a recommendation that those criteria are satisfied. So, short point, very limited basis to revoke. The Council's decision to recommend well overtaken by events by the Minister having recommended and declared and promulgated this area as an SHA, and very limited powers leading up in the period to September 2016 for the Minister to revoke. And on current information, HPO doesn't support any of those criteria on which the Minister could revoke being in existence, and that's the Minister's initial view as well, that the Minister doesn't have the limited grounds under the legislation to revoke.
Okay, now, Christina, Catherine Rather, I just want to take you a little bit before the special housing area, and this is maybe a little bit outside of what you would have been studying over the last day or two, but there's been a lot of discussion this morning about the backstory here for the Humatao community and the preservation of that land. So as a consequence of decades of advocacy by local iwi, Manukau and I think Auckland Regional Council worked pretty closely to get as much of this land as we possibly could back into public ownership. So we own that, and this piece of land that's subject to the special housing area may have been something that we might have looked at in the years ahead, but unfortunately we went through a legal process which in the end brought the Environment Court to a decision that was in support of private ownership of the land. Now, can you just sort of reflect a little bit to us on what that means in terms of going forward with regard to the decision that we need to make today on revocation and any other decisions? Because Te Warana in particular highlighted the fact that, look, we've got to deal with that land. One way or another, it's sitting in private land, it's sitting in private hands, and they have rights. So how does that sort of impact legally in terms of the discussion that we're having here today?
That provides the baseline from which council, as a matter of law, must operate. So yes, despite the position that Auckland Council took, standing side by side with the others before the Environment Court in terms of a public open space zoning, the court recognised the sensitivities of the land but thought the zoning was appropriate as long as things were properly managed. So those recommendations from the Environment Court that became part of the operative plan have been, as I understand it, incorporated into the unitary plan as proposed. So on one scenario, if this land had never been declared an SHA, there would still be an entitlement to look to develop the land in the future, under the proposed unitary plan that would reflect the recommendations of the Environment Court as to the appropriate zoning. So it's helpful to look at it on a with or without SHA basis.
Right. And just finally, so that we need to get it really clear here in terms of our ability to revoke, and there's been a little bit of chat this morning about whether or not we could head off to the Governor-General and petition Jerry. Can you give us some really clear view on what that might look like, or whether or not we really have any right in that direction?
Well, can I say that there's nothing to preclude anyone approaching the Governor-General, but there are very strong and fundamental constitutional conventions under which the Governor-General only ever acts on the advice of the Minister, which is why the legislation is crafted that the Minister may only recommend the revocation in certain circumstances. So the Governor-General would never act absent a recommendation from a Minister in general terms, and more specifically, this legislation is very clear, and I'll just emphasise the wording here, is that the Minister must and may only recommend the making of a revocation. So that's very important, the very clear language. He must and may only. So only if these three criteria exist could the Minister recommend the making the revocation. Is if he's satisfied that the special housing area no longer meets the criteria in section 16.3, and I'm focusing on that because that's the only one that can be relevant here. And those criteria are that there's adequate infrastructure exists to service the proposed development or is likely to exist, that there's evidence of demand to create a qualifying development in specific areas, and that there will be demand for residential housing in the proposed special housing area. And those are, of course, reflected in the criteria that the governing body adopted for itself as to how it considers whether to recommend that an area be an SHA.
Okay. Right, councillors, are there any questions of our officials? Councillor Cathy.
If this council decides today to revoke the recommendation to the Minister, what are the consequences of that? We heard somebody say just recently it's a gesture. Is that your legal opinion? Because we can do gestures real easy.
I'm going to confine my response in a technical legal sense. It would be, it would not be legally, it would not legally activate or contribute to a change of the legal position.
Understood. So it is indeed a gesture. Is that your legal opinion?
I'm not making a comment on that.
Thank you very much.
Okay, any other questions?
I don't stand down there, actually. I stand
Okay,
in
order,
Albert Eden Roscoe.
order, please. Right, thank you very much, officers. Okay, councillors, I'm going to look. I want to acknowledge Lydia and the local board. I've heard from Councillor Alf.
It's okay, I've spoken to her.
Yeah, okay.
So
I acknowledge you and I understand your support. So thank you for being here in support of the community. Okay, there's no extraordinary business. There's a notice of motion under item 10 and is appropriately signed, and that is for a notice of revocation. And I want to acknowledge Councillor Cathy and the notice that you have moved. Councillor Cathy, I just want to, in asking you to speak to your notice of motion, reflect back to you the advice that we've received today. And that advice is that, and so I thought very deeply about whether or not I'd even accept this notice of motion. And that advice is that we cannot, without the Minister's support, and the Minister clearly does not support, that's both in writing and his advice to me, the revocation of a SHA designation for this land. And so there is a very, very clear train of legislation that we need to follow. And in my discussions with the representatives of the iwi, and these discussions are based on discussions over many, many years. And as has been noted, I have stood and has had my predecessors, my councillor colleagues, side by side this community, Ihumatao, as it has fought and sought its recognition and better investment in this land. And it is on this day, though, that I put to you and ask for your reflection that we cannot, either by way of resolution or otherwise, revoke this special housing area, and if we were to, it would be nothing but a gesture. And I most certainly am not of support of gestures. Orders, please. Oh, thank you. So, Councillor Cathy, the ball is in your court in terms of this recommendation. You are entitled to move it, and you know, we will have a debate.
I wish to second it.
That's very good. Councillor Cathy.
Thanks. I want to talk, just say a few things really about my personal journey to today, and also about our processes that we've been discussing today. First of all, I'd just like to talk about my first meeting with the Ihumatao. It was with you, Mayor Brown. We both went to the Mangere Arts Centre. You've known Ihumatao a lot longer than me. But we went to the Mangere Arts Centre for a photography exhibition. It was Kiane Matata Sipu, who's not here today, but she is watching. And Kiane had these amazing photographs, some of which are in your agenda. They're black and white, and it charted life at Ihumatao. It was in the tradition of Ans Westra, really. Wonderful photographs. But more than that, the people of Ihumatao were there to tell their stories, and some of them are here today and some of them have passed. And it was the most amazing, moving evening of a way of life. And that's what we're all talking about. This uninterrupted way of life that has gone on in Auckland as it's the oldest in Auckland. So that was how it started. The photos came to life. My next involvement with Ihumatao was the pouring of 1,000 litres of purple dye into the Ururangi Awa. And it just so happened I got involved in that because we'd had some local issues at Oakley Creek, and Kiane got in touch to see if we could help. It's a link into council. And that's been described, that was Jenner's worldwide freight. They were fined $100,000. It's been described as, and I quote, Auckland's most destructive freshwater and marine pollution incident in decades. So what happens next is interesting. So that's 2013. In 2014, in this room, we looked at 88 special housing areas. And that number is important because this is where I got onto our processes. We've heard about how that legislation fast-tracked equals rushed. Indeed, there's nobody in this room who would say otherwise. Because in a 3-hour workshop, we looked at 88 special housing areas, one of which was Oruarangi Road, 14 of which were in my ward. My job as the local councillor was to hopefully speak against those that the local board had concerns about. So my focus entirely was on my ward, as we had to do that day. So when I went to the public meeting in Mangere and heard amazing stories of unfair treatment, I heard amazing stories about precious land that had been, or was about to be, desecrated. I went back to that day and looked at what we had put in front of us. Now, this is no reflection on the staff. This is a reflection on the process. Now I have 2 folders on Uruarangi Road. In the workshop, we had 3 pages. Did any bells go off in that workshop? Do you know what the sad thing is? I can't remember. I don't remember bells going off. I don't remember flags going up. I remember the local board having a wee red mark next to it. I don't recall why the local board objected. If someone asked, I don't remember. That makes me an incompetent. And ever since I learned about this and read all the folders, I've wanted to make it right, to put it right. So, Chairman, for me, it's not a gesture. It's not a gesture. It's about putting right something that I did wrong. Now, I can't speak for anybody else. I can only speak for me. I didn't do right by that group of people over there. I didn't take enough cognizance of the words on the page. And this is a chance now to say, well, okay, now I've had a chance to think about it, I've had to listen. So the land swap's brilliant. You know, you've heard everybody saying that's a way forward, but let's put that aside. Right now, it's our processes. Our processes are that this law, I've got the T-shirt on. What this law has done, and we passed it, we voted. Yeah, Penny, if you could just not do that, eh? If you just not do that. What this law has done is not allow any right of appeal or any right of review. What our Local Government Act allows us to do as councillors is review any decision we make. That's our right, and that's what we're doing today. We have a process. The government doesn't have a process. And that's why, when, you know, I've been asking the lawyers, what do you do here? What you do is, you come to us and you say, do you think you made a mistake? And I think I did, and I can only speak for myself, so I will be voting in favour of revocation. Yes. And I understand perfectly that this doesn't revoke the special housing area. I understand that. Everybody in this room understands that. What we're doing is putting something right that's wrong. Now, if you all think that the decision you made in that work, well, we don't make decisions in workshops. No, we discuss things in workshops. Then it came to a council meeting. Actually, it came to 2 council meetings. The first council meeting it came to was up at Oraki Marae, and there was a storm, remember? And we had to call it off, and we had an extraordinary meeting, and that's where Tranche 3 went through, 8 to 8 special housing areas. So I'm trying to fix it, and I promised I would after that public meeting. So I've done what I said I would do, and I look forward to getting the support of every single councillor in this room.
Councillor Mike.
E ngā iwi, kua hui hui mai nei, I te kaupapa o te rā. Ngā iwi o te marae o Makaurau. Te iwi o Waiohua, te Waikato, rātau, ngā iwi Pakeha, ngā iwi Hamoa, ngā iwi katoa o Mangere. Ngā mihi nui, ngā mihi mahana kia koutou. No mai, haere mai. I want to acknowledge the people who have presented to us today, the people from Seoul, those passionate young people, and also I want to acknowledge my old friends, those chiefs, Te Waana and Emily. I have worked with Te Waana and Emily for 25 years during my time in the Auckland Regional Council, working with them on Tiritiri Mātangi, on Motu Tapu, on Motu Wehi, in their roles as leaders of Te Kaurau Amaki and Ngai Tai Ki Tamaki Trust, working with them in the Waitakere Ranges, at Arataki, at Dudas Beach, at Maraitai, at Hamlin's Hill, at Bethel's Beach, all over this region. So I listen carefully to what they say. But I have to say this time, what they say seems to be against the wishes of the ordinary people. And so I'm listening to the ordinary people. There are three aspects to this case. The special values of that land and how fitting it is that these people come from Makaurau Marae. Tamaki Makaurau. We say that all the time. But what does it mean? It means that people love the land. And you people love the land. And why? It's very lovable. It has all sorts of values that we would tick boxes under the Resource Management Act and under the Unitary Plan and under the Auckland Plan. Archaeological values, geological values, historical values, cultural values, environmental values, landscape values, a very special area. So no wonder the people love it and don't want to see it covered in buildings. That's quite understandable. Did we consider that adequately when the decision was made? No, we did not. Why? Because, as Mr. Kimpton explained, the legislation is not about environmental effects, not about human values, it's about pace. Pace. And sometimes haste and pace can cause mistakes. We all know that. Our parents taught us that. Making decisions in haste and regretting at leisure. So that's the values of the land. And of course, yes, it is privately owned. And we heard how that happened, and that's something we are still dealing with in this country in terms of redress under the Treaty of Waitangi when property was taken unjustly, and we all have to pay for that, and that's fair enough. So we should. I have always supported that. But the history, the past is still with us, so we need to be mindful that the hurt is still there, and far be it from us to want to sprinkle salt in those wounds that go back to the 1860s. So we come down to the law, and I have said the law is all about rushing and pace and getting houses built ASAP. The law but we can lawfully revoke a decision. That's lawful. It may be awkward. It may irritate the minister, though I know the minister and I've worked with him for years. He's a good-hearted chap, actually, and not unreasonable. And if we were to revoke our assent for this special housing area, we just come up with, wasn't there a judicial review, so we've popped up with 2 more special housing areas to make up the numbers. So we could certainly say that to the minister, we're holding our end up, but this is just too special to be destroyed, and it will be destroyed. I want to say, we can't undo, this is in the end a ministerial decision, we can't undo that. And somebody said, the mayor said, it's a gesture. It's more than a gesture, because it's a start of a process. It's a start of a process to say we've thought again, and this governing body has decided that the recommendation was made in haste. We have listened to the people because we're a democratic society. We're a democratic...
Councillor Mike, stop please.
Sorry?
You're actually here, Councillor Mike. Speak to us. It's not a stage that you're performing on today. You're addressing your colleagues.
Yes.
Just
well,
address
I'm
us.
talking to the people too, Mr. Mayor. It's not often these people. It's not often these people take the trouble to come all this way to the town hall. They have every right to be respected. I will talk to the people. I want to say this. I want to finish now.
Councillor Mike, just stop yelling at me.
Now, so
just calm down and stop yelling at me.
Or don't interrupt me, please, unfairly.
Councillor Mike,
that's a cheap shot, Mr. Mayor.
It's not. We're here. Just talk to us.
I want to tell you this, Mr. Mayor and members of the public. It's never too late for justice. The law must be just. And in the end, our society is a just one. There are ways and means. And it's difficult. There is difficulties under our constitution to approach the Governor-General, but I did it once when the Prime Minister and the Cabinet turned me down on an application to get a Vietnam War veteran his just war pension. I went to the Governor-General, and guess what? Something happened, and the Cabinet changed its mind, and this man has got his war pension in Rarotonga. So you can go to the Governor-General. I want to say this. We need to support Councillor Kathy Casey's motion because this land at Ihumātao is special. This is a special case. This is special because of historical reasons, layers of history. This is special because of cultural reasons, and both sides in this debate agree with that. Special for all sorts of environmental features, special because hundreds of people have come to this chamber passionately wanting to protect it. So the land is special, but one thing it is not, it should not be a special housing area. Thank you.
Right, Councillor John.
Oh, geez, it's a little hard to follow two speeches like that. So I'll try and confine myself to the matter-of-fact options before us today as far as the notice of motion goes. I listened to both legal opinions, both our council lawyer and also the one for the Soul Group. Our legal advisor said there's nothing to preclude an appeal to the Governor-General, so that can happen. The legal representative for Soul said the same thing, but went a little further and said that in their view, revocation was the right gesture. So in both instances, we have the Governor-General, and an appeal to that person is a viable option. So I guess what follows from that then is whether councillors decide that it's justified in this particular instance. I wasn't going to say this, but seeing Councillor Casey has been brave enough to do so, I'll also throw my hat in the ring and say that I had no idea of the special significance of this land as well, of what it meant to the people. And you know, perhaps that is a shortcoming on my behalf. I should have maybe got out there and had a look around, and I might have appreciated it. I might have talked to some of the people that have come along here today. My view would have certainly been quite different. But in reality, it's impossible with the way we operate here with this legislation. We had 88 special housing areas. We don't have any site visits for those housing areas, so we don't go along and look at them. We get bits of paper. If they're in our own ward, then we'll have a little bit of expertise perhaps. But if they're outside our ward, there's nothing organised. I remember when I was on the Rodney Council of all places, site visits used to be an integral part.
Point of order, Mr Chair. We've had 4 separate bus visits. Whether people choose to attend or not, we just need to be a fact.
Did we go out as part of the Auckland Development Committee for a site visit to examine all the features that have been outlined to us today through various means? I don't think we did. We maybe drove past in a bus. I don't call that a site visit. And that's not a point of order either, Mr Chair.
Yeah, look, it's a point of clarification, Councillor John.
Okay, so as far as our options go now, then they're pretty straightforward. We can make the right gesture, as our 2 previous speakers have urged us to do, or we can offer up a kind of Pontius Pilate type gesture where we just wash our hands of the whole thing and do nothing. I would suggest to us that if there's one instance in this whole special housing area that would cause us to make the right gesture, to actually do something, whether it alters the status or not, this is definitely the one. So let's stand up. Let's stand up for the people that have come along here today, that both sides who have offered very compelling arguments for why we should do that. Let's do that. We made a mistake. Let's make the right gesture now.
Okay, now we've had 3 speakers for the notice of motion. Are there any speakers who want to speak against it? No.
Not against, I have a question.
Oh, now, Councillor Wayne, you'll try me. All right, now, this better be a question on an issue. I don't want a speech on the question. So it's a question to whom? Have you got the question?
Well, it's actually a question to you.
Excellent.
I've got an amendment that Crispian has, and I'm just seeking...
No, you're not the mover of the motion. So, as you know, Councillor Wayne,
well,
if you've got an amendment, we've got a substantive motion here, and we are speaking to that substantive motion.
When is it appropriate to make an amendment?
Well, Councillor, it's not yours. It's a notice of motion.
I'm happy to add. Happy to add a C that includes Councillor Wayne Walker's. It's not an amendment, really. It's an addition. It's about the land swap. Very happy to add it as a C, and I'm sure my seconder will too.
Where is that, please? Councillor Wayne, do you have a seconder for that?
Well, I'm the mover, so I'm happy to have it as a C, and Mike will second it.
Yeah, what exactly is it?
To progress the land swap.
Well, we can do that without resolution anyhow. Right, put that up there. Okay, now have we got anyone speaking against it? Councillor Penny.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
May I speak to C?
No, not yet. Just want to get it up there first. Councillor Penny.
There's been no consideration.
I do just want the opportunity, because this will go to a division, and I want to explain very, very briefly why I'm not going to be able to support this. I understand the emotion, I understand the passion, and I understand the issues raised, but I just want to say, for the following reasons, I won't be supporting the notice of motion. I'm very clear about how we reached the decision to make this an SHA. I'm also equally clear that we have the ability within the SHA process to incorporate all of the issues that Te Wārana has negotiated through with Fletcher's, and unless one of these councillors, is proposing that this land is purchased, and I'm not going to pin my hopes to a promised land swap, because I don't know how viable that's going to be. Unless these councillors, particularly the ones who didn't support the LTP, are prepared to put money in the budget or utilise our regional parks budget to purchase this piece of land, it is a hollow promise to revoke this. The removal of an SHA designation will not save this land from being urbanised. The bigger issue is to look at a serious proposition to purchase this piece of land. So, councillors, I acknowledge and I respect your decision to vote for the revocation. I, however, don't do gestures, I do action, and unless we're prepared to put a big slug... Can I just...
Order, please. Just stop. Stop, please. Okay. This is a bit of a different public meeting for those of you who are sitting in the room and sitting outside. In the normal public meetings, it's open slather and away you go. But you've come here today to support the kaupapa with the governing body, and we have very clear rules about whether or not there's any public debate during the course of our own debate. The debate stays here, and we ask the public to observe and not become a part of it. As you can see, we are grappling with this issue mightily, and we ask you to respect the silence and just let us get on with the debate, rather than either involving yourselves in applause or secondly heckling a speaker. This is not that particular forum, so please respect it. We'll come to a decision soon. Councillor
Kia ora, Mr. Mayor, and as someone who's spent a long time on marae, I respect the tikanga and the kaupapa of the pai pai, and I appreciate it being respected here. Thank you. I'm endeavouring to be honest, and that's the way that I work. Unless we are looking at and there's a subsequent recommendation to look at our long-term plan and the budgeted amount that's required to purchase this piece of land, the urbanisation of this piece of land will proceed. So I will not be supporting this revocation unless it's accompanied by an equal proposal to purchase this land. Otherwise, I think it is an unfair gesture. Kia ora.
Thank you. Right, I think we had Councillor Alf.
Hey, Your Worship, this is going to be the hardest kōrero that I'll be giving. I want to acknowledge all of the whānau in Māngere, as I did earlier. Your Worship, this, I'm going to put this as hard as the long-term plan. That decision that I made for the long-term plan, that was the hardest. This is even worse.
Yeah.
And I will not be supporting the revocation. And I want to give the reasons why I will not be supporting the revocation. When Councillor Casey came to me and asked me to sign the revocation, my first words to her were, Kathy, if this allows Soul to have a voice at the governing body meeting, and it allows everybody around this chamber to at least get what Soul wish to put on the table, well then I will then make a decision as to whether the support for the revocation or not will be made. And that's why I signed it. I also know the position of the local board. I tried to get hold of Bub and just let Bub know, and I'm talking about Uncle Morris's moko. I tried to get her to know what options were available for Soul. And the options around the consenting process, because the SHA had been passed, and it was interesting with Catherine, our legal advisor, saying that a year ago the SHA was identified by the minister as an SHA. Your Worship, and more importantly to the community in Māngere, I will not be giving false hope, because that's what I believe that we will be doing, is false hope. I asked a question of our legal advisor, and I asked, if this goes through, will it kick off a process for revocation of the SHA? And the answer was no. It will not kick off the process. I do not want to give Soul a false hope around any processes that will be kicked off. And again, the reason I mentioned the long-term plan, and I'm not going off the subject, is that was a hell of a hard decision, and this is even worse. Now, I know that Te Waringa, and I also know that Te Akatai o Waiohua, who I have been at least talking to around this SHA, and I've spoken to them, and I take on board what our young lady mentioned at 2011, Your Worship, when Manukau went to the Environment Court with our mana whenua and around it, and I know the CIA was done as Te Waringa said. But, Your Worship, I do not want to give Soul and our community false hope around a process that will not happen. It won't happen. I mean, I know that it's not going to go down well, but I didn't want to end up sitting here and then voting against it, and people taking pot shots as to why I voted against it. But this is why I'm giving that reason now. In regards to the process from here on, and I mean, again, it was around the advice, Your Worship, I received about a month ago. And that advice a month ago was exactly what Catherine had pointed out. And that is their specific circumstances around the minister revoking an SHA and the 3 and under section 6.3. And the 3 are here. I obviously won't be having that many friends after this, but Your Worship, Yep, and I'll take that on board, but Your Worship, no way am I going to give Soul a false hope around what we can and cannot do. So, well, you know, like you said, Worship, this is the hardest thing ever, and can I just finish on one thing, and that's Te Wari. Te Wari said, and that was Marianne. And Marianne and I'm only going to mention this, Marianne and I spoke about the housing, the environmental court decision, and as Te Wari said, she also said the same thing, as in regards to try and get as much as you can, as in the whole issue now, if it goes through, and it's going to be built there, there's going to be land built there, you know, there's going to be homes, it's going to be built on. And she said it was better at least having and getting as much as they can for Makaurau. So, Your Worship, it is with a heavy heart, but I will not be supporting this.
Kia ora, bro. I'll just want to acknowledge Councillor Alf. You all here know him, you know his heart, you make your own judgments, as you will us all. And I suspect you'll make those judgments based not only in your assessment today that we've actually grappled with this issue, but also you'll make your judgments based on a history of seeing how someone doesn't just talk the talk, they walk the walk. Now, I just want to very quickly, Councillor Wayne, you've proposed a C, and to ask Stephen if he can reflect on this. We are sitting in a process, in a legal process here. Just a minute, Councillor Wayne. And so I just want to ask Stephen for, this is our Chief Executive Officer to the members of the public, Stephen Town, who sits on my left. If he wants to just comment on the veracity of that second addition to the recommendation C. Stephen.
Thanks, Your Worship. The governing body cannot agree to C because you cannot resolve to not fulfil your statutory obligations as a regulator. So you cannot resolve to put a consent process on hold in this manner. Okay, because you're then not fulfilling your statutory obligations to process consents under the RMA. Yeah. So you cannot resolve C, and I would ask Your Worship to rule it out of order.
Okay.
Mr Chairman, point of order.
I question that, Mr Mayor.
Councillor Mike.
Section 5 of RMA is centred on peoples and communities.
Yep.
And I think that needs, not on a process.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Mike.
Principles and purpose of the Act come foremost.
Order, please. Look,
point of order, Mr Chairman.
Yes, point of order, Councillor.
As the mover, I'm happy to amend C to read, agree that the Mayor facilitate a meeting between Auckland Council, Mangere Otahu Local Board, Fletcher Residential, and the other, I can't really read it because of my eyesight, stakeholders to consider options for preserving rural buffer around Otawa Stonefields Historic Reserve. The process could include land swaps. So really just take out the offending words and add in, you will facilitate a meeting.
Yeah, more than likely to do that anyhow without it actually being, because I suspect there will be continuing discussions around matters, but I certainly will not be supporting A and B.
I'd be happy for C to be taken separately.
C, I would be happier to actually give you my undertaking that I will continue to be in discussions with parties. If you try and include it in a recommendation, I'm not sure whether or not that would add anything further to the fact that I will continue to be in discussions. So, Councillor Cathy, I want you to take my word on this.
I will take your word on it and remove C.
Very good. Right, now, look, we've had a very good discussion so far, councillors. And I wonder whether, given the fact that Councillor Alf has spoken as eloquently as he has, if we mightn't just go to the vote. It's been a very, very good hearing to us all. So, councillors, on that basis, I would like to move that notice of motion, and we will do it by way of division.
Your Worship?
No.
Councillor and I?
Aye.
Sorry, can you repeat that, Councillor?
Aye.
Aye.
You were joking.
Councillor Brewer?
Against.
Councillor Casey?
Yes.
Councillor Cashmore?
No.
Councillor Cooper?
No.
Councillor Darby?
Against.
Councillor Philippina?
Against.
Deputy Mayor Hulse?
No.
Councillor Lee?
Aye.
Councillor Penrose?
No.
Councillor Quacks?
No.
Councillor Stewart? Sorry, Councillor Stewart, can you repeat?
No.
Councillor Walker?
Yes.
Councillor Watson?
Yes.
Councillor Webster?
No.
Councillor Wood?
No.
That's lost, Your Worship.
So, councillors, that is lost
12-5.
12-5.
You made a mistake and you couldn't fix it.
Okay.
You made a mistake and you couldn't fix it.
Thank you. Right. I want to, please, I want to acknowledge those who are all here, speaking on behalf of the community, and in particular, I want to acknowledge those from the Ihumatao village. I want to, please, I know that. Please, will you just listen and allow us to conclude this taki? We have listened, you have understood, I trust, the complexity with which we are dealt with in this issue today. And we've heard you, and we have had to make a decision that we've made. And the discussion will continue because we will be at the Makaurau Marae next month. Yep. I'm looking forward to seeing you there too. And I want to say that I've been on that marae on many occasions, and its hospitality it's a great marae. The hospitality is always outstanding, and I expect it to be the same again next month. The kōrero will continue, but I want to thank you for your aroha and your sharing and your passion today, both to Soul, to Warana, the Trust Board and all. Nō reira, tēnā koutou katoa. I'm going to close now for a cup of tea for 5-10 minutes. atmosphere a little bit at the expense of Councillor Bill Cashmore.
Happy birthday.
Councillor Billy Cashmore is turning 75 today.
Woohoo!
So we're going to sing him happy birthday. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Billy boy. Happy birthday to you. Up, up,
Hey.
up.
Hey. He's 67 today.
Checks-
so we just
checks on the mark.
But they told me you're 75. I believe them.
You get some new glasses, Mr. Mayor.
Well, I hope that your day is going swimmingly well, Councillor
To
Bill.
bus in all those people to say happy birthday to
Feeling like 75.
No, he's only 60. The 8 of December 58. He's a bit older than
Right. Have we got a call?
He's younger than us.
Right. Okay, moving on to item 11. We have got a procedural item here from Development Auckland. Rose.
I'll second it.
Well, I'll move. No, Councillor Penny H will move it. Councillor George, you'll second it. Rose, anything that you'd like to report? This is a sort of a omnibus.
One thing, councillors, is just to note that you're not actually delegating anything additional. This is just simply a procedural. There's no new delegations in this, no new powers, no new approvals. It's just simply confirmation so that we can make the transition nice and easy and smooth.
Got it. Right. Any debate or discussion? I'll move it. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Against, passed. Right, a referendum on alternative transport funding working party, and I want to acknowledge the working party of Councillor George in the chair, Councillor Cather, Councillor Chris D, Councillor Crum absent, and Councillor Wayne. Looks like you've given it appropriate and due consideration. You've got a recommendation there, Team. Marguerite.
Councillors, a couple of months ago there was a resolution of the governing body to form a working party to look at the option to run a referendum on transport options at the same time as the next elections. And we got the working party together, and Josh to my left explained to the working party the next steps and timing for discussions with the government on funding of transport options. As a result of the explanations that Josh gave, the working party agreed that it wouldn't be feasible to run a referendum at the same time as the next election, mainly for timing issues. So the recommendation, and if you have any more questions about that, I'm sure Josh can answer them. So the recommendations of the working party are that the referendum not be held, but that we can provide further advice as discussions with central government and transport options continue.
Very good. So, Councillor George, so I presume that there would have been a reasonable discussion around the fact that we actually need to get a position or something or other from the government as to whether or not they're even prepared to countenance this. Before we go to the idea of a referendum. You've got there a second recommendation which basically covers off that possibility. Yeah. So it keeps the thing alive for any future discussion depending on the outcome of our discussions with the government. So Councillor George, is that about right?
I'll move the recommendation.
Okay, that's good. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Carthy will second.
I wanted to say something.
Oh, you want to say? Okay, Councillor Arthur will second.
Okay.
Councillor Cathy.
It was just when there's the opportunity, we discuss the idea that the government might be interested in a referendum as well, because it's...
Yeah, well, they could.
So they may be interested in sharing the cost.
Oh, well. Well, I don't know, someone better be. It's a goodie.
So
mind
if
it's
the
not
opportunity
$56 million
arises,
for a flag referendum, so, I mean, it's, you know, could be worse. So I think your item B covers that off, doesn't it, Councillor Cathy?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Good.
any opportunity arises that
Yep.
we sheet home the fact that you might be interested to the government in the result of the referendum too,
Cool.
therefore...
We'll
the
all be a
cost
part of
could be
those
shared.
discussions anyhow. Councillor Wayne.
Sure, I just make the observation around B, which really goes to public engagement, and I would suggest the need on our part to better inform Aucklanders, because my view was that what we went out in the LTP was very limited, essentially just giving people a choice of tolls or rates and fuel tax, and frankly I think the outcome that you get from that is almost preordained. We need to do a much better job of informing the public as to options, looking at other options and engaging with them. So I certainly support the B that's here.
Yep. Anything else? Right, I'll move that. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Those against?
No.
Thank you. Voted against. Right, that's passed. Now, can we, I now want to move the exclusion of the public for all of those reasons set out in there. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Linda. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Those against passed. Right, we'll include, we've got Cummy. Cummy was going to come in and speak on item C2.
Oh, it must be because of his friend. Business on those.